Whether you call it a Jan or a Gim, the Chinese straight sword is very well known for its elegant design and also its elegant techniques. Now, a lot of people own these. Sometimes they practice Tai Chi, sometimes Wushu, sometimes they're just a collector, such as myself. Now, there's a varying degree of quality between these, and as I own a few and I was requested to show them off by a subscriber, I thought I'd do another video similar to my one where I looked at the differences between a high quality polished saber and the mass produced cold steel model. But this time I'm going to do three different ones of varying quality from ordinary to best, and hopefully I can help you spot a good one from a bad one, how to tell differences in quality, and it's just going to be a bit of a like sword porn. We're going to look at some really nice ones that I own, and I hope you enjoy. Alright, let's have a look at Exhibit A. Now, this should be very familiar to people. Most of you might recognise these marks here. This is a very common sword to own. I believe they're called Dragonwell Forge, and essentially, well, that's the name of the city, I believe. This exact model is very common. This writing on the blade here in the stamped logo here, which is, I believe, inlaid with brass, is very common. Now, this is actually the very first sword I ever purchased. It's cheap and basic, but the blades are very good and they do hold an edge fairly well. Now, obviously, this one has seen better days, as I've owned this literally since I was a teenager. It definitely has had a few failed sharpening attempts and a lot of cutting practice. Still sharp though, and we'll have a look at this. Now these are not the worst, mind you. You can get ones that have chrome plate steel blades, which are absolutely worthless. You can get ones where they're hollowed out, and if you like make a stabbing motion too hard, they break. So this one here is, I'd say, not terrible quality, but standard quality. Now, as you can see, the sword itself, the tang protrudes through to the end and it has a thread on it, and we have a rather rudimentary nut just screwed on here, and that holds the entire handle assembly and the blade together. Now, these fittings here are just literally hollowed out sections of brass, often with nothing behind them, and you have a wooden handle which is kind of loose on the blade. It is just a tension between the nut and down here, and where that basically goes into, if you can see that, into there, and as you can see, that's a bit of a dodgy hole there which has been cut. These are very flimsy. You can just bend it in and out by hand like that at your leisure. It is, as you can see too, they have a rather basic pattern, just punched through the brass here. The scabbard is similar. It's just basically some flat brass, as you can see here. That's sort of soldered in place there fairly roughly. A little bit of a knotted string. It's got a bit of a tiny little pinned bolt in there. And that's just like literally just sitting on top of the scabbard. You could move any one of these. It's purely how tight this end here is hammered onto the wood. And down at the end of the scabbard, you have a similar thing. It's literally just, it's fairly rough. It's basically just brass plate with these patterns punched through it. I'm not sure what this timber is called, but it's actually quite nice timber. It must be a Chinese tree, I guess. But the pattern on it's very good. Now, this will do for most common practices. Now, it did come with a tassel, and the tassel attaches, as you can see, merely by this hole in the bolt, and that's just a piece of wire, which is just like seen in there. That comes off very easily. The actual tassel itself broke, as they have the most cheapest tassels. But as you can see, the design is basically, it's just flat plates cut into shape. and soldered together. It's fairly hollow. This piece is very, very light, but like I said, it moves quickly and the blade carries an edge. And we'll go closer to that pattern that she's inlaid. You have 7 stars and a dragon on this side, and on the other you have some writing which I cannot read, and you also have the 7 stars again. It's very nice. Like I said, this is not the best example of these swords, as the blade has definitely seen some better days. It is loose despite having a spine. Basically, the entire way it just sort of ends just up here, right below the tip. It has a single spine, like many Chinese straight swords. I'll just pick it up for a second. And as you can see, I'll place it here. It definitely has flex in the blade, and it springs straight back to the original shape rather nicely. So these swords are what I'd call your basic entry level. They're not the worst, they are definitely not the best, and if you can get one for a decent price, it's definitely worth having one, because you can sharpen these up and do some cutting practice with them, no problem whatsoever, as I have done with my particular one here. However, it's not much to look at. The fittings are just flat brass, even though the blade is fairly good, and the timber on it is great, but like I said, it is just fairly standard. So what happens if we want a slightly better quality than this one? Alright, the next sword I'm going to show you, I cannot actually recall where I purchased it. However, I'm going to slowly pan across this writing on the box, and hopefully those who can read it would be able to, if anyone's interested, because I get asked all the time, where did you buy that? And this one I honestly cannot remember. I also have owned this for years and years and years, and it's still in really good shape. This is the original box it came in, so it's obviously got the brand name there carved out into the top. Alright, let's have a reveal. Okay, I'll just get this tassel out of the way. Now, it's worth noting, I'm not a particular fan of long tassels, so as you can see, I have tied several extra knots in this one here to shorten it down a bit, but this is actually a very good quality one. These are heavier than the usual one that hasn't fallen apart. You've got some little beads here, and you've got this jade or faux jade ring. I am not an expert on jade, so I cannot say if that is real or fake, but I imagine you would be feeling bad if you smashed that in some vigorous practice, as it does look quite nice. Now, I've done limited cut testing with this one, as it is, it's fairly nice. This is a very practical sword. However, I still want to keep it good, so I haven't gone to town torture testing it. So as we move up and down the scabbard, and it comes with its own little kit here, you can see a couple of differences already. Number one is, unlike the basic pattern stamped into the other one, here we have a very intricate design which has been etched into all aspects of the fitting. That's a bit dirty, but this sword is literally, I think, 20 years old. As you can see here, even on these little sections down here, we still have an intricate design, and it's actually pinned on there, as you can see on this side here. Now, this cordage is a lot thicker and definitely a lot more durable than what we have on the standard swords. And quite frankly, the timber here, it seems to be similar. I'm not sure if it's the same species or not as the other tree, but The grain is very tight, which is a sign of strong timber. It definitely has the weight of a hardwood in the scabbard, and as you can see, there's actually quite a bit of curvature and a lot more care taken in the construction of the guard and the fittings on this. These match very well, nearly seamlessly, and the end here, it still has a nut, but at least it is a nut which has been custom built for this task with its own little ring here for the tassel. Now, and forgive me, please, I do not smoke 3 packs a day or use nail polish. I just crushed my thumb at work, for anyone who's wondering what that big ugly purple stain is. Now, I did try to drill it out and let the blood out, but it was not completely successful. Anyway, the nut here is custom made to hold a tassel. It's not just something from the workshop thrown on. But you can also see here there is a timber dowel which runs the entire way through the handle, which, unlike the other one where the tang simply rolls up and the nut is screwed on as tight as possible, which comes loose over time and rattles, this here, this little dowel which goes through a hole in the tang, is a secondary point securing the blade into the handle, which makes it a lot more safer and a lot, there's less play. So, as you can see, it is already, you can tell the difference just in the basic detail, just of these very small fittings. Although they are still plate, they are etched in with an amazing pattern. They've got pins holding them on, they're not just jammed on. And quite frankly, the timber seems to be a better cut because the grain is a lot tighter, the cordage is better. So already we're starting to get an idea of the differences in quality, which will only increase once we unsheath it and get a look at that extremely beautiful blade. Oh, that is quite stunning. It is folded steel, and just look at that awesome pattern. That is just beautiful. Now we've got some more writing here, which I'm guessing a Chinese reader would be able to translate and have more of an idea on the origin, the pedigree, the manufacturer, whatever you want to call it. Here we have the 7-star constellation again represented slightly differently. Let me just focus. Yep, there we go. And again, just take a look at that folded metal. Now, there's arguments as to whether folding the metal is a necessity or not. I think that when you're looking at this, there's no arguing that it definitely adds to the quality of the sword, if not for just aesthetic reasons. Much like the other design, this one has a single spine and diamond-shaped section which runs the entire length. Essentially, the spine only ends relatively close to the tip. This one came sharp. I've only had to touch it a few times, and I have cut practiced with it, and it is a very nice cutting sword. It's not quite as good as a saber or a katana, but still, these were more of a thrusting sword, and it gets the job done. Now, we've already discussed, let me just shake that off a bit. We've already discussed how we have this wooden dowel which secures the blade, and that is in there. There is absolutely no play. You're hearing the bead, not any rattling. However, if you see here now, I'm going to feel like an idiot, I forgot the name of that part, but the little sleeve which surrounds the blade right where it meets the hilt there, that is something which isn't present on lesser quality swords, and definitely not present as tightly as this. Now we'll try Getting a look down, you can see here how much, well, for starters, that is thicker metal and it is more well made. It's not just, a rough cut hole, that is all fitted in very nicely indeed. And that is just so secure. It is so just beautifully crafted that it's just a very easy way to tell the quality just in how the blade is fitted to the handle. Once again, we have the dowel, everything is tighter, everything is a lot more seamless. And this sword here is definitely a very high quality sword. Now, I would imagine that for most, getting something better than this would be completely unnecessary at all. However, I do have another level of sword that is even better than this one. Now, this is, without doubt, this is absolutely perfect. This is top shelf. However, when you get custom made swords, which go a bit more of an extra mile, then would be the top shelf for mass manufactured, particularly with the cleanness of all the fittings in the blade. There is another level to this game, and we are going to see that right now. So, while this sword here, I definitely would say represents the top shelf with regards to a very, very tightly constructed and very, very practical Chinese straight sword. It has a very top quality blade. Everything on it is tight and just built absolutely perfectly. There is another layer. What if you want something which is above and beyond that? Something which is just an absolute work of art? Well, I believe I have one right here. This is a custom made Chinese straight sword. As you can see, it has a praying mantis and plum flower theme. You have a nice little yin yang symbol here, and every single fitting is full of detail. Even these little attachments here are just absolute, like those rings even are detailed. Now, the big difference here obviously is that unlike the others, like we had on the most basic mold, these are flat plates which have a pattern punched through it. Then the next layer was a flat plate with a very intricate design etched into it. Well, here we have something completely different. This is literally molded. It is completely three-dimensional. Now, I'll try and get right in there. Yep. These, like if you look here, the detail in the flower, the detail in the background behind it even, all this stuff, this has been done in a mold. It is three-dimensional. You have these 7 stars represented in a different way again across the guard here, even up here at the tip. You have, oh, let me get it in focus. Come on. There we go. You basically have a little praying mantis there. And as you can see, that is just absolutely a level of detail above and beyond anything you are likely to see in a mass-produced sword. Now, the timber here, it seems to be a slightly different kind. It is a hard wood, as this is quite heavy with the scabbard onto it. And there's a slight design departure here. The scabbard is much more square than curved. Likewise, the handle has definitely got a much more slightly squared design to it. And quite frankly, while a lot of people don't like this style, whether it's on the European or Eastern sword, this one fits quite comfortably into the hand. I mean, and if you look here, even on the sections of the guard which are just flat and plain on the even top quality practical sword, here are patterned. This is just absolute. I cannot express how beautiful this is. Now, there is no tassel loop of any description on the end there. We have not one but two dowels holding it in. Now, the lower one is just straight timber. This one here is like a small tube which runs the entire way through the tang, and it's not just punched through, it has a beautiful little plum flower on either side, and having the tassel, which is a fairly simple and practical one, which I like, situated here slightly behind where the front hand would go, is just, to me, that is the ideal placement. I much prefer this design to having some kind of tassel or decoration on the end, as I'd be tempted to remove other tassels, but this one, it doesn't obstruct any movement when you are in use. Now, there's a bit of excess cordage here, but whatever, you can change that over. And every single minute detail on this will get right in there. You can see the little praying mantis reaching up. I believe that's the cicada there is going to grab. Is just purposefully done, has been moulded. Here we have some writing for you readers out there of Chinese. Just every little detail right down to these little fittings here and these rings is just absolutely breathtaking. Now, this is you're not going to come across something like this every day, so if you see something this good, I would advise you, if it's affordable and you want it, jump on it when you have a chance, because this level of quality you will not see down at some, local martial arts store. This is just absolutely stunning. Now, we're going to have a look at the blade. Okay, so we have some stamping on either side of the blade here for those who wish to read it and probably can understand it, whereas I can't, and might be able to locate the manufacturer. But right off the bat, once again, this part I ignorantly have forgotten the name of, this little sleeve over the blade base where it fits into the hilt here, even that has a level of detail on it which is just absolutely beautiful. If you look at that now, where it fits in as to be expected is just absolutely seamlessly good. You can see basically the thickness of that mold, as it's not flat, it actually bulges out on either side. It is a solid mold. It is not just a flat piece which has been stamped with a design. It actually has a fair bit of weight to it. However, as the weight is at this end, it does not affect handling. This sword handles extremely well. Now, let's focus in. The blade design is also a departure from the last two, and this is again something I absolutely love when a Chinese sword, particularly one which is single-handed or hand and a half as this one may be, has just that absolute slab of metal right at the fort. This just anchors the point of balance directly down here, but plus provides you just an absolute, just a huge chunk of metal to deflect and break any incoming attacks to parry up here. Now, as you can see, it narrows off fairly well. We travel down the blade. The distal taper is mainly in the spine. As you can see, it has a diamond-shaped cross-section with a spine which runs just about the whole way to the tip, which seems to be the common feature of the Chinese straight sword. Very few of them have got fullers. I have one which it runs slightly different shape. Well, a bit different this one, but that's for another day. Now, this one here is unsharpened. I am not really interested in putting much of an edge on this and cut testing with it, because for obvious reasons, while I'm confident something of this quality would definitely not break. It's unnecessary in my opinion for this one. Now you have a fair bit. Let me just line this up here. You do have flex in this sword. It is a fairly flexible one. It returns to the straight line once you take pressure off it. So it is somewhat softer. I didn't actually flex the second sword, as that one, the folded steel one, is very stiff. This one here is perhaps a lot more dueling sword and less battlefield orientated. It moves just absolutely brilliantly in the hand. As despite its weight, it's just all right down here in and around the hilt. Its point of balance is just superb. It has, like I said, that extremely thick fort, and then it just tapers down to a very nice spine and tip, and that is just absolutely beautiful. Like I said, we can argue all day about the superiority or inferiority of folded steel. I know a lot of people think that unless it is folded, it's absolute garbage, but if you have good steel, which fortunately China is blessed to have a lot of very good springy steel, you can make a sword like this, which will basically, it will flex and return to proper shape. So there you have it. Now I feel quite lucky to own such an absolute stunning piece of artwork, and I did want to share it with everyone. Excuse me, I assure you I do not have any viruses that are going around. And like I said, one of my subscribers who has placed some very nice comments and requested a look at some exquisite yarn gim, whichever language you choose to speak, which I might not be getting the intonation correct on either of them. My apologies in advance. And I just thought I could show this off. So, to summarize, to sum it all up, this here is your stock standard. You can practice with a blunt, you can cut with it. It is only slightly heavier than the plate steel wushu swords, but is so much better than those. I will definitely highly recommend this as your entry level yarn. It's like I said, it's a bit rough around the fittings, but if you can get one that has this style of blade here, they are just absolutely, that's 20 years old and has been the hell punished out of it, and it still returns to its original shape. No matter how much abuse I've put that through, it definitely has taken it and more, and has only needed to be tightened a small number of times. So definitely recommend that. I'm not sure what they run for now, maybe between $100 and $200. Perhaps you can even get cheaper, which hopefully if you can snatch one up. If you want something which is definitely more practical, possibly more historically accurate, then something like this is what you'd look for. You'd have to look for the tight fit-ins, hopefully something which definitely has the dowel through the tang. And if you can find something which is etched, great. If you don't care for decorations, then not necessary. And these ones here have a very martial orientated folded steel rigid stiff blade, which is just excellent for stabbing and cutting. And if you can get one that has a nice blade and is well etched and everything fits, and this is a custom bolt, not just like something from the hardware store or many of the others, it will probably be worth spending a little bit more on. However, like I said, if you see something and you can afford something like this, you are not going to get much better. Now, The blade style is entirely up to you. I just love having the thick fort, I should say, and the tapering down to the single spine Chinese style afterwards. It definitely adds to the handling that makes the sword extremely quick and have good blade presence still. I love having the small practical tussle like this located through the tang in one of these little pipes here, and like I said, that's just below where the hand would comfortably fit, so it doesn't get in the way. You can conceivably use this as a double-handed sword, although your hands will be bunched up and there would be not much leverage happening, but you could do it if you really chose to. But like I said, once you get into three-dimensionally molded from real steel fit-ins like this, that is just so beautiful. And if you can afford something like this, even if you just find something like this that's within your means, I would highly recommend, because this is an absolute collectible keeper. So there you have it. Essentially, your different levels of swords. I hope we've been able to learn something about the different levels of quality and what you can expect or not expect. And like I said, I just felt like I definitely should showcase this style of sword, as we haven't looked at all on this channel. And even though I'm not the best by any means at wielding a Chinese straight sword, I can appreciate the absolute beauty of these. And like I said, even the straightforward practical ones like this can be just stunningly elegant too. So I'll leave it there, and no matter, if you're the collector or practitioner, try and get yourself a nice one. You'll definitely will not regret owning a Chinese straight sword.